ladies think you run this place?
Picture this. A warm summer evening in New Orleans. The kind of night where the air hangs heavy with promise, where music spills out of every doorway, and the city feels alive in a way that only New Orleans can. Two sisters, Maya and Madison Carter, walk down Bourbon Street after the longest week of their lives. They're not looking for trouble. They're not looking for anything except maybe a cold drink and a quiet corner where they can laugh about nothing and forget about everything. They push through the doors of a bar called the Crescent Moon. The music wraps around them. Laughter echoes off brick walls. Glasses clink. It's perfect. It's exactly what they need. But within minutes, everything changes. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to shake something loose inside you. And I want to know this story reached you. Hit that subscribe button too, because stories like this, they need to be heard. They need to spread. And you're part of making that happen. The bar is alive, right? People everywhere. Music thumping, but then this shift happens. Like when a cloud covers the sun and suddenly everything feels colder. That's what it was like when Sergeant Derek Stone walked in. He's off duty, but his badge, it's right there on his belt. Visible. Deliberate. A silent threat that says, I own this place and you better remember it. He's drunk. Not stumbling drunk, but that dangerous kind of drunk where inhibitions dissolve and cruelty becomes sport. His eyes scan the room and they land on Maya and Madison's table. He smirks. And that smirk, it's not friendly, it's predatory. He walks over and the smell of whiskey arrives before he does. He leans down, both hands on their table, and his voice cuts through the noise. Well, well, look what we have here. You ladies think you run this place? People nearby. They hear it, they glance over, but then they look away. That's the part that gets me every time. The looking away. Because that's how intimidation works, isn't it? It doesn't just silence the victim, it silences everyone watching. Madison meets his eyes. Calm, steady. We're just having a drink. You should probably move along. Oh, he loves that. You can see it in the way his grin widens. He drags a chair across the floor, the screech of it piercing every corner of the bar, and sits down backward, blocking them in, trapping them. Behind him, two more officers materialize. Travis Burke, broad-shouldered and bruising, positions himself behind Madison's chair. And Kyle Hammond, the youngest of the three, sways slightly, his words already slurred as he makes comments about their appearance, their bodies, loud enough for everyone to hear. The laughter that follows is ugly, sharp, cutting, and the sisters, they sit there, back straight, eyes locked on their aggressors. Some people might mistake that composure for weakness, but it's not. It's calculation. They're trained for this. They've survived worse than drunk bullies. But they're also human, and inside their hearts are pounding. Marco, the bartender, he sees what's happening. His hands shake as he approaches with a tray of empty glasses. Gentlemen, he says, his voice carefully neutral, maybe we keep things friendly tonight? Stone's response is instantaneous, venomous. Why don't you go back to washing dishes before I start asking questions about your papers? The threat isn't subtle. Marco's jaw clenches, but he steps back. He knows the game. He's played it before. He's lost before. And right there, that's the moment. That mini earthquake that makes you, sitting wherever you are right now, want to scream at someone to do something. To stand up. To intervene. But nobody does. Madison's patience is wearing thin. Burke's hand moves from the back of her chair to her shoulder. She turns her head slowly. Don't touch me. His response is a laugh. Or what? You gonna call the cops? All three men burst into laughter. It's the kind of laugh that's built on years of unchecked power. Years of getting away with it. Years of knowing the system will protect them no matter what they do. But underneath that laughter, Maya and Madison's eyes meet. No words. Just that twin connection, that silent language only they understand. This isn't just harassment anymore, this is a powder keg. And the fuse is lit. The harassment escalates. A crude comment becomes a grab becomes a shove, and then Burke slams Maya against the wall, his forearm pressed into her chest, trying to make her small, trying to make her powerless. The music doesn't stop, but it might as well have. Everyone sees it. Everyone knows. And then phones start appearing. Shaky hands in corners of the room. Recording. Capturing. Stone notices and lunges, smashing one phone against the floor, the screen shattering like the fragile pretense that this is still a civil encounter. But it's too late. The footage is out there. The eyes are watching, and then Madison reaches slowly into her back pocket. She pulls out a small leather case. It falls onto the table with a heavy thud that somehow cuts through all the noise. The shield gleams under the dim bar lights. FBI. You're assaulting federal agents, Madison says, her voice clear, steady, undeniable. The bar freezes. Gasps ripple through the crowd like a wave hitting shore. Stone's smirk falters. Burke's grip loosens. Hammond goes pale. For the first time that night, power shifts. That should have been the end of it, right? Any rational person sees that badge and backs down. Apologizes. Walks away. But Sergeant Derek Stone isn't rational, or maybe he's too rational. Maybe he knows exactly how deep his protection goes, how far his power extends. He laughs. It's hollow and cold. He nudges the badge with the toe of his boot, sending it skittering across the floor. Cute trick, he sneers. You think that little card means anything here? This is my town, my rules. And in that moment, the sisters understand. This isn't just three drunk cops. This is something bigger, something systemic, something that's been allowed to fester for years because people looked away, stayed silent, chose safety over justice. The officers escalate quickly. Stone barks orders like he's on duty. Burke pins Maya harder against the wall. Hammond yanks Madison's arms behind her back with unnecessary force. The metallic click of handcuffs echoes through the bar. People gasp, but nobody moves. The sisters don't resist. Every muscle in their bodies screams to fight back. They could. They're trained. They're capable. But patience. Patience will yield something bigger than a brawl. They let the cuffs bite into their wrists, knowing somewhere, somehow, evidence is being recorded. Their march through the crowded bar, faces pressed to windows. Some sympathetic, some relieved it's not them, some just blank. Outside, the humid New Orleans night wraps around them. Street lamps buzz overhead, and waiting at the curb is a squad car. It wasn't a coincidence. This was planned. The ride to the precinct is short but brutal. Burke and Hammond jeer from the front seat, tossing insults about uppity women and badges that don't mean a damn thing in Louisiana. At the station, cruelty becomes procedural. Booking officers barely glance up as the sisters are processed. The charges are fabricated on the spot: disorderly conduct, resisting arrest. Threatening officers, boxes checked, papers signed, lies committed to ink as if truth were nothing more than handwriting. They're shoved into cells, cold, fluorescent lights buzzing mercilessly overhead. Through the bars, they exchange steady looks. This isn't new, those looks say. In their years at the Bureau, they've investigated corrupt sheriffs, judges who took bribes, officers who planted evidence. But they've never been the targets. Tonight, they're not federal agents with authority. Tonight, they're black women in a system built to break them. Hours drag. Around 2 a.m, Stone's voice drifts down the hallway. Louder. Looser with alcohol. He's bragging to Burke and Hammond about past cases. Families ruined, evidence planted, young men thrown behind bars on fabricated charges. Each story is told like a hunting tale. Another notch on the belt. The sisters' hearts pound, not with fear, with calculation, because Maya still has the small microphone she managed to keep hidden. Every word Stone speaks is being captured. It's not much, but it's a start. Morning comes with more humiliation. Officers parade past their cells, mocking, taunting, reminding them that no badge can save them here. Then comes Chief Richard Dalton. Silver hair neatly combed, smile disarmingly polite. But his presence carries weight. The weight of a man who believes he's untouchable. He studies the sisters with the calm of a predator sizing up prey. "You have two choices," he says softly, almost kindly. "Take the charges. Spend a night here. Leave town tomorrow with your tails between your legs. Or..." He pauses. Lets the silence stretch. People disappear here. Paperwork gets lost. Charges multiply. Even the Bureau won't save you from that. The menace is in how quietly he speaks. Like he said it before. Like others didn't walk out alive. Maya forces her voice steady. "You're making a mistake." Dalton chuckles, amused, and walks away, leaving the weight of his threat hanging in the stale air. For the first time, Madison allows herself to exhale, long and slow. They both know now. This isn't just about 3 drunk cops. This is about a department. Maybe an entire network built on fear and silence. That night, hope appears in an unexpected form. Officer Rachel Santos. She's young, her uniform still crisp, but her eyes tell a different story. When she brings them food, she slips a folded note into Maya's hand. A phone number scrawled quickly, a lifeline. "They do this all the time," she whispers, barely audible. "Usually to women like you. Black, passing through, nobody fights back." Her courage is shaky, but it's real. For the first time since the bar, the sisters feel it. That spark they hadn't allowed themselves. Hope. As dawn approaches, the sisters piece together what they have. A recording of drunken confessions. A sympathetic ally inside the department. Witnesses too scared to speak, but ready to be heard if someone gave them a chance. The risk is monumental. They're not just fighting 3 corrupt cops anymore. They're staring at a system that includes a chief, judges, and though they don't know it yet, an FBI supervisor with more loyalty to power than justice. But here's the thing about New Orleans. It's always been a city of contrasts. Music and laughter masking scars of injustice. Resilience rising from the weight of history. And that night, in a cell meant to break them, Maya and Madison Carter understand they're standing at the edge of something bigger than their own survival. The bar fight is no longer just a bar fight. It's a spark. One that could either be smothered by silence or ignite a blaze powerful enough to expose everything. The sisters don't sleep. They can't. Their minds are alive with strategy. Their bodies tense but unbroken. For all the threats, all the attempts to humiliate them, one truth remains. They have the training, the instincts, the will to turn the tables. And deep down, even as the fluorescent lights buzz and keys jingle outside their cells, they know the night that began with a simple drink has transformed into something else entirely. The start of a war for justice. You can't win a war alone. That's what Maya tells Madison in the quiet hours before dawn. Not out loud, but in the way she looks at her sister and the steady rise and fall of her breathing. To topple corruption this deep, they need allies. People brave enough to stand in the shadows where risk is highest and still choose truth. Rachel Santos was the first. That phone number she slipped them opened a door. She returns when she can, pretending to check locks, deliver coffee. Each time, her eyes dart toward cameras, then back to the sisters. She tells them things no one else dares say. How complaints against Stone never make it past the chief's desk. How women who spoke up were labeled liars. How men of color who tried to fight back lost more than freedom. "I joined to serve," she whispers one night, "but I can't serve a lie." The sisters listen. They don't ask Rachel to take risks she's not ready for. They know the cost. They've seen whistleblowers buried under retaliation. But courage doesn't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives in fragments. A whispered warning. A photo snapped when no one's looking. A file slid into the right hands. Then there's Julia Chen, a journalist with a reputation for chasing stories others buried. She'd spent years locked in battles with city officials. Written about housing scandals, embezzlement, police misconduct. Each time she was silenced with lawsuits or intimidation. Her paper had folded under pressure. But Julia never stopped digging. Word of the Carter sisters' arrest reaches her through a bartender's cousin. And she knows immediately this is bigger than a bar fight. She arranges a meeting in Jackson Square, beneath the shadow of St. Louis Cathedral. She arrives with a recorder hidden in her bag, arm still in a sling from an earlier run-in with men who wanted her quiet. Julia asks questions no one else dared. What had the officers said? What evidence could they prove? Could they back it with documents, witnesses, recordings? Maya slides a flash drive across the table. Confessions, she says simply. Julia doesn't gasp. She just nods. Because she learned long ago that truth is never clean. It's messy, jagged, often dangerous. Then we build the story, she says. But we do it smart. Redundancy, backups, dead man switches. If they come for me again, this doesn't die. That becomes their plan. Redundancy. 3 cloud drives, 2 hard drives. 1 safety deposit box on Royal Street. The most sensitive evidence hidden inside a vintage jazz poster. Encrypted in pixels only the right key could unlock. To the untrained eye, it's art. To those in the know, it's testimony. Judge Harold Brennan joined them reluctantly. Retired for 5 years, Brennan had once believed his gavel was enough to scare corruption into retreat. But retirement had loosened tongues, and what he'd heard unsettled him. Case files that didn't add up. Charges materializing from nowhere. Young men sentenced on evidence that evaporated when challenged. When Julia brought him the sisters' recordings, his jaw clenched. Not in surprise, in recognition. It's not new, he admits, but maybe it's time it ended. He opens his own archive. Old rulings, transcripts, complaints dismissed without cause. Paper doesn't forget. For the first time in years, his conscience outweighs his fear. If we're going to tear the rot out, he says, we'll need more than anger. We'll need a map. Together they trace lines of influence. How Stone's arrogance connects to Chief Dalton's quiet threats. How certain judges signed off on warrants that never should have existed. How seized properties ended up in the hands of developers tied to campaign donations. It's not just corruption, it's an ecosystem. A machine feeding on the poor and vulnerable, cloaked in the authority of the badge. Meanwhile, Stone and his men strike back. Businesses with surveillance footage face surprise inspections. Landlords receive anonymous calls suggesting tenants are trouble. Julia's phone floods with threats, some crude, others chillingly precise about her routines. An online smear campaign paints Maya and Madison as imposters waving fake badges, claiming the FBI has no record of them. Lies spread fast. Truth spreads slower, unless you feed it fuel. That's where the sisters' restraint becomes their weapon. They don't shout back on social media. They don't waste energy fighting trolls. Instead, they record a calm 2-minute video in Audubon Park. Spanish moss draped behind them. They speak directly to the public, not about their names, but about principles. Dignity is not optional, Maya says. Justice is not selective, Madison adds. We are patient, we are prepared, and we are not alone. The video isn't flashy, but it resonates. People share it not because it's dramatic, but because it's honest. Then comes the prosecutor. Assistant U.S. Attorney Leah Davidson is no stranger to corruption cases. But she's also seen plenty collapse when evidence went missing or witnesses folded under pressure. When she receives a quiet call from Rachel Santos, then a flash drive from Julia Chen, she doesn't hesitate. If you're going to do this, she tells the sisters, you need airtight procedures, chain of custody, digital redundancies, witness prep, because once they realize what you have, they'll burn the city down to stop it. She's not exaggerating. That week, Julia is shoved against a wall, her laptop stolen. The crescent moon where the nightmare began is vandalized. Bottles smashed, windows shattered. It's a message. Stay silent or be silenced. But by then, the evidence lives in too many places to kill. The truth has multiplied, stored in clouds, secure servers, and the hearts of those who finally decided to act. Days later, Maya and Madison walk out of the precinct, bruised but unbroken, into a city that has begun to whisper their story. They're not just federal agents anymore, they've become symbols of defiance, of what happens when silence is pierced by courage. Their allies, Rachel, Julia, Judge Brennan, Leah Davidson, aren't superheroes. They're ordinary people who decided enough was enough. And sometimes ordinary courage is what brings down extraordinary corruption. In the shadows of New Orleans, among moss-draped trees and jazz notes that never quite fade, a fragile coalition has formed. It's not perfect. It's not safe. But it's real. And for the Carter sisters, that's enough to keep fighting. The night that began in humiliation has given birth to something else. A network of truth, built by hands that refuse to tremble. In a city that learned the hard way that silence always comes at too high a price. The night air near Lake Pontchartrain carries the smell of salt and rust, the kind of heaviness that clings to forgotten warehouses and men with too much to hide. Maya and Madison are shoved from the back of a van, wrists bound, ankles bruised from the ride. Stone and his men think they've orchestrated the perfect ending. Two troublesome women, silenced, far from the light of Bourbon Street. What they don't know is that the sisters have turned captivity into calculation. Every shove, every insult, every step closer to that warehouse is being recorded. Streamed in real time to a place no one in that van can touch. Inside the warehouse, a single bulb flickers, casting jagged shadows. Stone struts like a man already writing his victory speech. Burke and Hammond flank him, drunk on adrenaline, waving weapons like props. "Nobody's coming for you," Stone sneers, circling the sisters like a wolf savoring the moment before the bite. "Your badges won't save you. Your bureau won't even claim you when I'm finished." His words carry the arrogance of a man who's been protected his whole life by a crooked system. Madison's eyes lock on his. Calm, steady. "Then why don't you tell us everything? Say it all. Loud enough so everyone knows who you really are." It's bait, but Stone takes it. Men like him always do. He laughs and launches into a tirade. Teachers framed for crimes they never committed. Young men tossed into cells on planted evidence. Property seized and flipped for profit. Burke joins in, bragging about intimidation. Hammond about silencing witnesses. They think they're terrifying their captives. Instead, they're writing their own indictment. A small black box hidden in the corner hums quietly, sending every word into a secure uplink. The signal splits three ways, to Leah Davidson, to Julia Chen, and to a church basement mesh network powered by faith and stubborn resilience. The evidence is live, impossible to bury. Every second their voices fill that warehouse, the noose tightens. Not around the sisters, around themselves. When Stone finally pulls his gun, it's desperation, not dominance. He presses the barrel against Maya's temple, expecting fear. Instead, she breathes evenly, eyes locked on Madison. In that silent exchange, they move. It's swift, precise, born of years of training, a twist of the wrist, a pivot of the hip. The weapon clatters across the floor. Madison drives Burke back with an elbow. Maya sweeps Hammond's legs. The men who once swaggered with power now flail, bound by the same cuffs they used to humiliate others. The live stream doesn't blink. Viewers across the city, judges, officers, citizens, watch as the story flips. The predators are now the prey. The silence that once shielded them shatters under the weight of their own words. Outside, sirens grow louder, a chorus of accountability closing in. State police storm the doors first, followed by the FBI Civil Rights Squad. Leah Davidson leads them, her voice steady as she orders every weapon collected, every word documented. Officer Rachel Santos steps in behind her, no longer hiding in the shadows. She hands over a zip drive with timestamps, her testimony sharp and unshakable. For the first time, the sisters see her not as a frightened ally, but as a force in her own right. Stone tries one last defense, shouting that the Carter sisters entrapped him, that the recording was staged, but his words ring hollow against the mountain of evidence already secured, against the live feed mirrored across multiple networks. The truth has spread too far to be caged again. Maya and Madison don't celebrate. There's no triumph in the takedown, only relief, and the weight of what still lies ahead. They check each other's bruised wrists, exchange a glance that says, "We made it, but this isn't over." The city has seen too much to pretend anymore. Corruption has been dragged into the light, and light does not apologize for shining. As the sisters walk out of the warehouse, escorted but unshackled, dawn begins to break over Lake Pontchartrain. It's not soft or gentle, it's fierce, golden, undeniable. And in that light, the reckoning has begun. Morning in New Orleans has a way of making even the most scarred streets shine. The sun rises over the Mississippi with sharp golden clarity that seems to slice through the smoke of everything that came before. 3 weeks have passed since the warehouse raid. The city is still buzzing. Federal agents remain stationed at parish headquarters. Journalists crowd courthouses. Families who long carried quiet grief are stepping forward with stories once buried. And at the center of it all are Maya and Madison Carter, the sisters who refuse to bow. The community hall near Jackson Square has never seen such a crowd. The wooden floor groans under the weight of people packed shoulder to shoulder, filling every seat, lining walls, spilling into streets. Faces young and old, black and white, Catholic, Baptist, and everything in between. What unites them isn't just outrage, it's hunger for change. Julia Chen is the first to step forward. Her ribs still ache from the attack. The cast on her arm testifies to the price she paid, but her voice carries fire. "Tomorrow morning," she announces, holding up a thick folder. "The full investigation goes public. Months of digging. Thousands of pages. Every false arrest, every fabricated charge, every penny stolen from this community, laid bare for the nation to see." The hall erupts, though many cry while they clap. An older man in the front row wipes his eyes, holding the hand of his grandson who lost 3 years of his life to a lie. Then comes Judge Harold Brennan. His frame is slower now, hair silver. But his words have the weight of someone who carried truth in silence for too long. For decades, I sat on that bench, watching case after case built on corruption, and for decades, I was told to keep my mouth shut. They threatened my family. They threatened my name. His voice cracks, not with weakness, with conviction. But tonight I stand with these sisters, with this community. Those days of fear are over. The room thunders with applause. Officer Rachel Santos walks up next. Not in uniform, in plain clothes. Her badge placed on the podium. "I resigned," she says plainly. "I cannot serve in a department built on lies, but I will serve this city in a new way. With truth, with accountability, and with all of you." She steps down to hugs and handshakes, her courage igniting hope in every corner of the room. When Maya and Madison finally take the stage, the hall falls silent. They haven't spoken publicly since that night. Now every eye turns to them. They wear no FBI jackets, no special attire, just simple clothes. Their bruises fading but still visible. They don't stand as symbols. They stand as women who were dragged through fire and refused to break. "When they shoved us into that bar," Maya begins, voice low but steady. "When they mocked us, when they tried to strip away our dignity, they thought we were just two women out for a drink. They didn't know who we were. But this story isn't about our badges or our titles. It's about the way they treated us. The way they treated so many of you. For years. Madison steps in, her hand brushing her sister's arm, grounding them both. This fight was never about just us. It's about every mother who cried when her son was locked up for nothing, every father who lost his home to a crooked seizure, every young woman who walked away from a night like ours with no one to defend her. She pauses. That ends now. The crowd roars, standing as one, not in anger but in unity. Outside, the chants begin. No more silence, no more fear. Echoing through the streets, rolling like a wave down to the river. People who never spoke up are now telling their stories to cameras and reporters. The sisters watch from the hall steps as Mrs. Washington, whose son was framed years before, holds up his newly printed college acceptance letter. Proof that lives can be rebuilt. But justice isn't only in words. Federal indictments have dropped. 17 officers face charges ranging from perjury to civil rights violations. Chief Stone's empire collapsed overnight. His smirk, once so untouchable, now broadcast in an orange jumpsuit across every news channel. His allies, judges, city officials, scrambled to save themselves, many turning evidence in exchange for lighter sentences. For the first time, the people of New Orleans can see cracks in a wall they long believed unbreakable. Maya and Madison know this is only the beginning. Reform will take years, healing will take longer, but what has shifted cannot be undone. The silence is gone. People believe change is possible because they've seen it happen. And once people believe, power no longer belongs only to those with badges and titles. Late that night, the sisters walk through the French Quarter. The air is warm. Streets quieter than usual. Gas lamps casting long, soft shadows. They pass murals painted in their honor. Candles flickering beneath portraits of loved ones lost to corruption. Strangers stop to shake their hands, some crying, some whispering prayers of thanks. It's humbling, heavy, and holy all at once. On a balcony above, a jazz trumpet plays a slow, soulful tune. It's not triumph, it's not mourning. It's resilience set to music, the heartbeat of a city that refuses to bow. Madison pauses, tilting her face up to the sound. "We didn't just survive," she says softly to Maya. "We changed the story." Maya nods, eyes on the horizon where the first light of a new day is breaking. And we're not done. Not until every last shadow is brought into the light. That promise isn't just between sisters. It's for every voice that's been silenced, every life that's been scarred, every truth that's been buried. The Carter sisters carried their town through the fire, and now they're walking together into a dawn of justice no one can take away. Let me bring this home. From the moment Maya and Madison Carter walked into that crowded bar in New Orleans, their lives and the lives of countless others were set on a collision course with truth. What started as a night, meant for laughter and rest, turned into a storm of intimidation, humiliation, and abuse. Men who'd hidden behind their badges for years believed they'd found easy prey. But what they didn't realize was that these sisters had weathered storms before. They weren't victims waiting to be broken. They were federal agents forged by discipline, bound by loyalty, driven by justice. The story that followed wasn't simple. It was filled with pain, betrayal, danger at every turn. We saw officers who laughed as they threatened. A chief who ran his department like a personal empire. Even an FBI supervisor who chose corruption over integrity. Yet, at the same time, we saw courage in unexpected places. An officer brave enough to break ranks. A bartender who risked everything to document truth. A journalist who nearly gave her life to expose it. Each act of bravery, each decision to stand up rather than stay silent, became threads in a tapestry of resistance. The Carter sisters were pushed to the brink. They endured shackles, false charges, near death. But instead of breaking, they fought back. They turned their training, their silence, even their pain into weapons. They forced truth into the open where no lie could cover it. Their fight culminated not in vengeance, but in revelation. The live stream from that warehouse didn't just capture corrupt men confessing. It captured the moment when power shifted from those who abused it to those who suffered under it. When the community gathered in the weeks that followed, the movement had already outgrown the sisters themselves. Families came forward with stories of lost sons, stolen homes, silenced voices. Federal indictments rolled, old cases reopened, an entire city began to heal. The lesson here is as urgent as it is timeless. Silence allows injustice to thrive. But truth, even when it feels dangerous, is the weapon that breaks chains. The Carter sisters show us that resilience isn't about pretending we're unhurt. It's about refusing to surrender. Their story is a call to each of us. In our own lives, we face moments when speaking up feels impossible. When fear whispers that we should look away. But it's in those moments that change begins. Whether in our communities, workplaces, or families, courage doesn't just protect us. It inspires others to rise with us. And now it's your turn to carry the story forward. If this journey moved you, if it made you reflect on the power of truth, resilience, and justice, then take a stand with us. Subscribe to the channel. Share this story. Help keep these voices alive. Every click, every share, every subscription fuels the mission to uncover more truths and bring more stories into the light. Together, we can make sure the fight for justice never fades. That voices like Maya and Madison's are heard far beyond New Orleans. Because when we choose courage over silence, when we choose truth over comfort, we don't just change our own story. We change the world. Drop a comment. Tell me what this story meant to you. Tell me where you're watching from. And let's keep this conversation going, because the next story that needs to be told might be yours.